I thought maybe this can help assure people who are on their own language journey, whether that is becoming fluent in English or in any other language. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. Today I would like to share my story of how I became fluent in English. I realized I've never shared the story before. I think I shared it in a reel years ago on my Instagram that you can follow if you'd like, but I've never made a video about it. And it's a topic that is a very passionate topic of mine. I have a lot of emotions around it, and I thought maybe this can help assure people who are on their own language journey, whether that is becoming fluent in English or in any other language, okay? As I'm also learning other languages, my advice often applies to all languages, but as I've lived this experience in English, and as I've been a teacher of the English language for a very long time, this is my first thought when it comes to this. So, what is my story? First of all, maybe you can hear it, I do have an accent after all. I'm German by birth. My parents are monolinguals. I grew up in a family where only German was spoken. I had no exposure to other foreign languages. I'm from a small village in the south of Germany, and that was the one language that existed in my world. I will say that French played a minor role in my family. My grandparents on my mother's side spoke it a bit, and my grandfather really loved the language. He's probably the only person I know in my family who's really been passionate about a language. So if somebody asks me, where does your passion from language learning comes from? I think it comes from my grandpa. He would write me letters, half in German, half in French, because he felt like it. And he would sometimes, when we had a phone call, just start talking to me in German about his day, and then from one second to the other, just switch to French because he enjoyed it. But having said that, again, I'm from a very monolingual family, okay? I had not really heard English until I started learning it at the age of 9 or 10. And then at that age, I made this really big decision that had no reasoning because I didn't know any different. I didn't know English, right? There I had the choice in my new high school, because when you're German, you go to elementary school for 4 years, to primary school for 4 years, and then you go on to the next secondary school that you stay at until you graduated. This is a different system from other schools. We don't have junior high or high school. We have elementary, primary school, and then basically high school, so to speak. So when I went on to go to high school, there was an option to go and be in the bilingual program. This meant that we had extra English classes. So all students start having English classes at the age of 10. Maybe now it's earlier, who knows? I'm old. But yes, everyone had English classes at the age of 10 at the time, but we actually had more classes per week. We ended up having 7 English classes per week, 7 lessons, okay? And they had the program where over time we'd have more and more subjects that were taught in English to us by a teacher. Those subjects were geography in grade 7, history in grade 9, and biology in grade 10 or from grade 10 on. They continued being in English. So we had history in English from when I was 14, geography when I was 12, and then biology when I was 15, 16. So we had books from America. They're super expensive. I remember that. And we just had regular high school material in English, and we studied from that. Our teacher only spoke English. We wrote all of our tests in English. So I was exposed to a lot of English. Now, mind you, I still had other subjects that were taught in German. That's the bilingual program, okay? But I would say that really gave me a head start compared to other people. Though, of course, I will say this, some of my friends or my classmates who didn't continue to use English in their life, I don't think would necessarily say that their English is that much better than other people's. Because mind you, you learn some rather specific vocabulary, especially in biology. I remember thinking, I'm not really going to use these words in my life. And a lot of those, specific terms actually translate easily, from one language to the other. Because, for example, in biology, you have a lot of Latin terms, which then sound the same, or almost the same in each language. But anyway, so high school for me was a very immersive experience. I also had 2 good friends there who were native speakers of English, who I often spoke German to as well. It was kind of a blend. Put it this way, my one friend, I spoke a mix of French, Spanish, English, and German to, because we both loved languages. And my other friend was an exchange student from the US who only spent a year in Germany. And I think I actually don't remember. These days we would speak English. When I visited her, we spoke English. I think at the time we also spoke English. In my head, that's what we did. I would say so. Anyway, so yes, I had some people I could speak English to. But I would say the real journey for me started when I was 19 and I graduated high school. Now, I had been really interested in going to Australia for the longest time, and this was finally the moment for me to make it real. So, as many other Germans do, I went backpacking for 1 year to Australia. And when I went there, when starting this journey, I decided I would not speak German for a full year because I wanted to improve my English. And I remember I started off visiting my American exchange student friend in San Francisco. And at the time, she actually encouraged me to write my journal in English because she saw me writing a journal. She said, "Oh, what language are you writing your journal in?" And I said, "German." And she said to me, "Why don't you write it in English?" And it was such a simple question, but I really took it to heart. And from this day on, it's been over 14 years, I've been writing my journal in English to 95%. There have been times when I wrote a bit in French, and maybe, I would say 99.5% to be true. It's very rare that I write it in German. So ever since then, I've been writing my journal in English. So then when I went to Australia, I also decided, hey, what else could I do to really improve my English? And I decided, well, I'm just not going to speak German for the whole time of my stay in Australia. And that's what I did. So I don't know if you've backpacked, but what is the average proportion of Germans backpacking versus the rest of the world? It's very big. So I would say from the backpackers I met, 30% were German, 30% were British, then there was some French, a lot of Swedish at the time, and some people from other countries. This meant, though, that the chances of me, sharing a hostel room with Germans or being on a tour with Germans or meeting Germans wherever I went were very, very high. In fact, I always had Germans around me. So I became one of these weird people who then would tell Germans, "I'm so sorry, but I'm in Australia to improve my English. I'm very happy to talk to you, but then please let's speak in English." And I will say it worked to the point that I had German friends who I only spoke English to. And then I had other people who didn't feel like talking to me, which, to be fair, that was not an issue for me at the time, right? I know maybe this sounds harsh to you. I don't want it to sound obnoxious or anything, but I just also felt that we're usually in a situation where there's people from all over the world, and I always want to make sure that everyone is included. I really hate the feeling of like joining a group of people and not being able to understand them. So that was another reasoning of mine. And I will say it worked, right? It's not like I purposely excluded people from joining me. But yeah, it worked really well. I had a lot of British friends. I even had a girl who didn't know I was German, and I just never told her. maybe that's for another story. But it can happen. I was very, very, very adamant about me only speaking English. And I would say that after a year, I really had learned so much. My level had skyrocketed and I made it. I then decided that I really loved that international atmosphere and I really wanted to stay abroad. And I enrolled at a Dutch university where the study program was taught in English. And again, there were a lot of Germans there. Probably 40% of students were German, 40 were Dutch, and the rest people from other countries. At that time, I was fine speaking German sometimes, but I would still always make sure to create this open environment so everyone felt like they could join the conversation and not feeling like excluded. Because that weird feeling sometimes when there's a group of people that technically are in your group, like maybe the university students or they're your colleagues, and then you join and you don't understand what they're talking about, and then they have to switch the language for you. I just felt like, if we don't have to switch the language because we already speak a language that everyone understands, then that would be cool, right? Because the environments that I was in were English speaking. I want to stress that, yeah. I was not in a German speaking environment or a Dutch speaking environment where I'd assume everyone knew English. Yeah, you shouldn't assume everyone to know English, but the environment that you were in asked for it. So yeah, then I studied there. I made lots of international friends and I went on to go on to several exchange semesters. I went to South Korea, I went to Barcelona and to Paris. My school was very international in that. And yeah, I just continued speaking English. And then after I graduated university, I was actually job hunting in Germany. I wanted to get into tourism. And while job hunting, I thought, I should just travel and write applications from the other end of the world because why not? I don't know how I had this idea, but I did. And I ended up backpacking Japan a little bit because I had really fallen in love with the country when I traveled there a year before that moment. And while traveling there, I got a job. And yeah, that just continued my journey on using English and speaking English and also learning English, right? I think one of the best things you can do to learn a language is to become a teacher at it. It's like anything that you want to learn, if you teach it and you tell it to someone and you have to explain it and you have to reason it, and then your brain will learn it better. So I really felt like I wanted to give my best. I wanted to be the best teacher possible. I wasn't sure whether I could actually be a good teacher because I was German. I was not a native English speaker. I couldn't even believe my boss wanted me to be that teacher. But, I put in the effort. I prepared my classes. I would check whether there were any words I didn't know ahead of time. And guess what? I still had classes where I didn't know the words. And what do? A, you say, I'm sorry, I need to check that for myself. I'm not sure right now. B, you take a dictionary. And then you just continue. And you know what? Your students will still like you. Your students will not say, you're a bad teacher. No, my students were cool with it. No problem at all. So yeah, I continued on this path. And as I've been teaching different levels and different sorts of classes over the years, I had the possibility to expand my English a lot. When I taught in Canada, I taught at a major language school and there were different tracks. I taught advanced grammar at the time. That was probably like a B2 level English grammar, B2, C1, B2, where I had to teach myself a lot. Like, I thought I knew all the grammar, but that grammar book really went into the nitty gritty and the details, and yeah. And then I later went on to teach the university preparation course at that school, so I had to learn a lot of academic vocabulary. And later in Germany, I started teaching business English, which I am doing to this day. And yeah, I just continued learning with my students. And to this day, I'm still studying myself because I love the language. I'm not, insecure about my English level at all. At the moment, I'm learning words that I know I will not use much. I will probably never use in conversation. I might just come across them in some news article, and you might be thinking, why would you want to learn it? It's just pure interest. Yeah. And knowing that I've gotten so far in a language, and I just really want to see how much further I can get. For this, I'm actually using the app Word App. This is not sponsored. I really like the app. It teaches you words through frequency. You can learn the 1,000 most frequent words, and then you can also learn the 14,000, between the 14 to the 15,000th most frequent word. This is what I'm working on. Yeah, I can highly recommend it. Check it out. It's a paid app. They have a free section. I will say I've been paying for a while, so I don't know what the free section looks like anymore. They introduced ads at one point, and I think they've also changed their payment model right now. Check it out. If it works for you, even the better. So, what about you? How have you learned English? By the way, I also want to stress something that I didn't do on my English learning journey. I actually didn't watch a lot of movies in English. I think a lot of people learn their foreign language through movies. And I'm just one of those people who doesn't really do that. And the same goes for music. I have a hard time making out the words of a song. I don't know if it's because it's a foreign language. I do think it has to do with the fact that I'm really focused on the melody and also on the instrument that are accompanying the song. I grew up in a very musical family, and yeah, I'm just very focused on the melody, so that doesn't work for me. I actually did not go on a high school exchange, right? I didn't do school, but later university, so yeah. What are your experiences? What are your thoughts? I would love to hear from you and how your English journey has been, and if you have any other tips for people who are watching this video. So drop me a comment. Thanks so much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with somebody who might find it useful. See you next time. Bye.